Well, hello and welcome back to The Composed Artist. I'm your host, Stephanie Gaffney. And today I chatted with a new friend, a brand new friend, Emily-Jane Sarroff. She is a brand strategist or has been a brand strategist for coaches and other creative entrepreneurs, small business owners in Australia. She lives on the Gold Coast of Australia, but she has recently taken the plunge, the big jump, the big leap of faith and courage that is starting her own art career. And so I was really excited to ask her how she has gone from serving serving clients in telling their own brand stories, marketing their businesses, connecting with the right clients, that whole job, that whole career, how she's gone from that and taken what she's learned in that time period and is now applying that to her new career, her new passion project of becoming an independent artist. So this is a really wonderful story from a very sweet girl, very young and successful artist and entrepreneur, all the way out in Australia. And every time I interview a guest from Australia, it always ends up where it's like the middle of the night for me. So I tried to bring as much energy as she did, and it was just a really great conversation. So without further ado, please welcome Emily-Jane Sarroff. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self-improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. I used to be a graphic designer. I don't know if you know that, but that was my major in college. That's what I was planning on doing um, until I got married and became a mom. Like that was my goal when I was younger. And then there was like a distinct shift in what I hadn't planned for my life. And then when I became an artist, you have been a brand strategist and like you've been helping other creative entrepreneurs with their brand strategies and content marketing, all of that. And now you are shifting gears and taking on this artistic journey of your own. What
Mhm.
was the trigger that like made you want to make that big change? Like what was the catalyst for that? I know we're starting with like a really big question,
I
but
love
no
it.
softballs here. Tell us what happened.
I love it. So my 27th birthday happened.
Happy
Um,
birthday.
Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. It happened earlier this year. And I guess the best way to tell this story is to actually zoom back on the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So when I was 17 years old, I remember going to a university open day. And I found myself walking towards this big open garage roller door. And I decided to walk inside. And I found myself standing inside the art studio of the campus. And I was looking around the space and I literally felt my heart just like expanding. Like it was
Mm,
just the first time I had this feeling of like, wow, I can really see myself studying here. I can really see myself, becoming an artist and learning how to paint and this and that. But that's not a real job. But that doesn't pay well. But. And I ended up walking out of that studio space, never looked back, and went straight to the architecture quarters of the
mm,
campus. So that's when I then started studying my architecture degree, which was, almost a 5-year path that I was on. And every year that I went deeper and deeper down that path of studying architecture, I drifted more and more and more away from my art. And it was only when I was 6 months away from finishing my master's in architecture, I was working a job in the industry already. At this point in time, I'm 22 years old. And I felt this like, it was almost like an emotional turmoil going on inside me, where it's like my head was saying, finish the next 6 months, get the degree, get the piece of paper, like continue to follow that corporate path. But my heart was pulling me away. My heart was saying, no, I don't want to work an office job. I don't see myself climbing this corporate ladder. Let's find something else. And that was when I had the inspiration to start my business. I started a podcast called the Empower With Them podcast, and that became the passion project for me. I felt creatively inspired again. So I started drawing, I started creating again. I was reconnecting with my art. And then all of a sudden, I became so focused on this goal to make my first 6 figures as quickly as I could and as young as I could, that again, I completely let my art fall to the
Mm.
side. And I was like, once I'm making 7 figures, I'll come back and I'll create art again. And so I did end up making my first 6 figures in just 8 months after starting my business in the coaching space. But I found myself hitting a point of burnout, which was to me, again, another little tug to start to
Yeah.
create, to start to come back to my art. But for whatever reason, whatever paradigm was playing out within my mind, it would always slip aside. And across
Mm-hmm.
the last, 5 years of my business journey, there's always been this little voice in my head in those moments where I find myself becoming so weighed down by business, or when I find myself reaching a point of burnout. And the voice would always say, create more art, create more art, create more art. But it was at the start of this year that that voice turned into a scream. Like, I'm telling you, I would hear the voice over and over again and I'd ignore it. I'd put it aside and I'd go, when I get to the destination, when I'm making 7 figures, when I'm at this point in my business, then I'll come back to my art. But it was on my 27th birthday this year, back in March, earlier this year, that I literally could not even show up for my business. I felt miserable. I was crying like every single day. All I was saying to my partner is, I just want to be an artist. I just want to be an artist. I just want to be an artist. I had no drive for business. And so I just gave myself some space. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, well, what do I want to do right now? And all I wanted to do was paint. So that's when I went down to my local art store, which conveniently is only a 2-minute drive away, which is, I think that's a sign.
Nice.
And I drove down, I grabbed some canvases, I grabbed some paints, I grabbed some brushes. I just restocked on absolutely everything because it had been years since I had properly created. And I just started painting. And so that painting that I actually showed you before we got onto this call was the painting that I started at that point, where it was
Yeah.
like I was being called back into stepping into my artistry. And so it's obviously been a fair few months now since March this year. But what's really been unfolding for me since that major turning point is just continuing to listen to that call and continuing to follow, okay, me stepping deeper into my art, what does that look like? How does that integrate into everything that I'm doing right now? Where is that pulling me, like, for the bigger picture of what I want to be creating? And really getting clear as well on, what old beliefs, what paradigms within my mind have been stopping me from embracing that more, and doing the work to actually deconstruct them to bring me back to myself. Because one thing I do know is that my art is the thing that lights me up the most. It's what brings me the most energy. When I talk about my big picture vision and I talk about where I want to be when I'm quote unquote successful in life, I'm painting in a garden, like, and the smile that it always brings onto my face is so huge. So I think that what's really the last 10 years has taught me, and where it's leading me now, has been a big homecoming to
Mm.
realizing, I've constantly seeked validation and purpose and meaning outside of myself, when all along the very thing that brings me the most joy and the most fulfillment and the most purpose in life is my art, and it's something that's within me. And so I'm in a season where I'm giving myself permission to start to bring that forward more and see where that really takes me.
Okay, that is so inspiring to hear. For all of these years, you've been encouraging other people, your clients, anyone that you're helping to pursue that drive, that passion project, and now you're pursuing it yourself. That's so exciting. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm so excited for you. And I'd love for you to share that painting that you shared with me, because I think that that's phenomenal. I'm a huge fan of surrealism, and it's not at all what I use. I'm a kind of contemporary realist portrait painter, and so the surrealism is really inspiring to me. And I'd love for you to tell me about your inspiration and why you paint the way that you do. But I
Mm,
did want to ask you, so you were running this coaching business, make and bank. Like, you've reached at a very young age, right out of school, you've reached this level of success that many of us dream of. And yet you made this big change because it wasn't where your passion like truly lied.
mm.
While you were doing the hard work and building this business, were you painting at all or doing anything like studio creative? Because I know that the job it requires creativity, right? Especially for each
Mm.
individual client and their different needs, right? But were you doing anything creative on the side?
Not until now. Not until
Oh
now.
my
I would always
gosh.
neglect it. Mm-hmm.
So your artist heart must have been hungry, like
Yes.
literally like starving. Were you doing anything for your client work that it could be considered like creative, thinking out of the box, any
Yeah.
like design or any sort of visual creativity at all?
Yeah, I feel like the largest piece of that would really come through in my own content and in the marketing that I would
Mm.
do on social media was a great creative outlet. But, even in that, it kind of reached a point where, especially now, like, in today's day and age, where I felt like I'm creating to work with the algorithm instead of
Yeah.
creating because it's what I want to create. And so, that did fuel that need of mine for some time, but it never fully satiated that hunger, for something deeper, which was
Yeah.
why I think there would always be that little tickle that would come through saying, create more art, create more art, create more art, until it was no longer a tickle, but it was a truck ramming me,
Yeah.
on my
Hmm.
birthday. And that's why I always say you can ignore it, you can ignore it, you can ignore it until you can't ignore it anymore. And it just really reached that point for me this year where it was like, I had to ask myself, why? Why am I ignoring it? Why am I chasing this version of success that other people are going after if it doesn't truly feel like it's lighting me up? And I think even though where I've been in my business journey, I haven't fully reached the destination that I had hoped I'd get to by this point. What I've really noticed come through for me is redirection towards joy and understanding that maybe the success that I was chasing, I never achieved it because it was never in alignment with what actually brings me the truth, joy, and fulfillment that I want in my life. And
Mm.
that was something that was really hard to accept because I had focused so heavily on one version of success, thinking that when I reach that, I'll belong or I'll be worthy or I'll be quote unquote successful. And having to actually start to step back from that and go, it's okay to change what I actually see as success. It's okay to follow something else that actually lights me up more. And it's almost like where I am now at this 5 year mark in my journey is the same point that I was at that like 1 year mark in my journey when
Yeah.
I was leaving my degree and I was leaving my job to start a business. It's like, okay, we're at that point again, but now where is it redirecting us to?
Yeah. Man, you're a wonderful example of uh, redirecting based on not only how you feel, but
Mm,
after you've worked really hard in a certain direction and knowing fully this isn't for me.
yeah.
We're I have in the past. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I'm sure many of us have felt that calling in one way or another when we're on a particular direction, and it's,
Mm,
it is looking good. We're good at it. We are maybe near the finish line. Maybe there's like a lot of joy and success in our very near future, but it's
mm.
like, oh, it's becoming so clear and evident the closer that finish line comes that it's not where we need to be. It's not even the right direction. So
Mm-hmm.
how it takes a lot of courage to shift gears and switch directions, and you've done that 3 times now. Congratulations. That's very exciting.
Thank
How do
you.
you feel about it? Like, do you feel that you've wasted a lot of time, or do you feel like you've proven to yourself time and time again that you working really hard? Well, I'm gonna let you answer that. How do you feel? How do you feel about all
Yeah,
that?
there's mixed feelings, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
try to always have a very empowering lens on the
Mm-hmm.
experiences I go through and the way that I view the world. And I guess the way that I see it is I'm on this journey through life, and it's a journey of unlearning everything that I was taught that pushed me out of alignment, and then relearning what it means to be in alignment. And so with that, it's there's going to be redirections, and there's
Sure.
going to feel like maybe I invested time and energy into an area that didn't get me to where I want to be. But when I think about, let's say for example, my degree, right, like almost 5 years in a degree, to I don't even know where that piece of paper is right now. I don't even know where I put it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's somewhere in a box, but like 5 years towards a degree, and I could look at that and go, that was wasted 5 years. But the way that I look at it is, what skills did I gain from that I've now been applying to this part in my journey? And the biggest thing is that blend between like the strategic and the creative mind of an architect, and how I've brought that into helping people grow their businesses. And the same with the last 5 years in business, even though I'm not, I thought by now I would be a 7-figure business owner, and I'm not. But that's okay. Like, even where I am now, and feeling this new pivot, this new redirection happening, and like these last 5 years have taught me so much about about again what pushes me out of alignment, what I do want to feel more of, what I don't want to feel more of, what I value. And that in itself is wisdom and lessons that I could never have gained otherwise. And they're the very things that are going to help me get to that next stage in my journey. And, if that means eventually becoming a full time artist, well, now because of my experience in business, I know how to monetize that, which is a big gap that I think a lot of creatives struggle with, is not knowing how to position themselves and build a brand and monetize that brand. I mean, I put up a call on my socials a month ago, and I was like, I want to get my first commission client just for the fun of it, just because, I want an excuse to be paid to do what I love. And I put out the commission and ended up signing a client for $1,500, and to
Mm-hmm.
have been able to do that because of the skill set that I've gained over the years of being in business and building a brand, like, even if the end destination isn't what I thought it would be, everything that I learned along the way is helping me with the next stage in the journey.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to look at life in general. Every
Mm,
day that you are making decisions and doing hard work and living life, you are learning more about yourself uh,
mm,
to improve the decisions you make tomorrow. 100%.
exactly.
You may have heard me talk about my little side business, my little fine art print shop. I create an original painting, I take a photo of it, and I print it, and I print it again and again and again. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a year on prints. It's so easy. And I learned everything I know about creating my own prints and printing them in house from Laurie Ann Gonzalez and her Art to Print course. I highly recommend, if you are an artist and you want to make easy money from your original works and even the commission works, you can resell those as prints. I recommend you check out Art to Print. Laurie Ann has a very direct way of teaching, and you are really going to appreciate her no fluff method of giving you information and telling you exactly what you need to do to make making fine art prints in your own studio a breeze. You can check her out online at learn.laurieannart.com. That's learn at LaurieAnnEart.com, or just click the link in the show notes for my affiliate link. Check her out and thank me later.
Exactly.
So, because I love talking business and strategy and marketing and all the things. What are, if you want to share with the class, what are some things that you learned about your last job? Are you full time? Have you completely cut ties and are a full time artist now? Or are you still serving clients with brand strategies?
Yeah, so I'm still working with clients in the branding
Mm,
and marketing space, and
mhm.
just starting to integrate my art alongside that.
Wonderful, love it, love to hear it. What are some strategies that you have been sharing and using in your business, and you've seen work for other entrepreneurs, other business
Mm.
owners. What are some strategies that you are now implementing in your pursuit as an artist, as an independent artist, selling work online?
Mm. Storytelling would be the biggest piece. So,
Mm-hmm.
telling the story behind me as an artist, telling the story behind the last 10 years of my journey from being that 17-year-old girl to now being that 27-year-old woman and all the shifts that we've gone through in that time. Sharing that story so my audience can connect and resonate and get to know me and understand the path that I've walked, telling the story behind the types of art I create and what they mean to me. And that's been one of the biggest things, actually, that has really helped with starting to put my art out there to get paid commissions, is creating the story behind what my art represents. And so we could think about this as, I guess, like, the brand story. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's really connected to spirituality and empowerment. And when I'm creating a piece of art, it's an expression of emotions that are within me and bringing them out and transmuting them into new emotions or new beliefs and that I want to carry forward. And the way that I've told that story behind each of the pieces of artwork that I've created has allowed people in my audience to deeply connect in with that. And so when I start selling commissions, then I'm painting this emotional experience that someone's going to have. It's more than just a painting. It's now a symbol of their spiritual evolution and this new chapter that they're stepping into, or a big hurdle that they've overcome. And I think that's one of the biggest things to focus on, especially in this social media age, is storytelling. The way that you tell your story, the way that you tell the story of your art, and the way that you create opportunities for people to actually connect in on that emotional level with what it is that you're creating.
That's amazing. That's very true. It makes it easier too if you're willing to do commissions. I mean, I talk about commissions all the time because it allows
Mm,
you to be the vessel through which the meaningful, unique, one of a kind piece of art
mm,
can be created. The one that this person who may not have an artistic bone in their body has been envisioning or would like to be recreated or
mm,
whatever, forever. And so you're able to give a gift. It's such a gift to the world to be an artist. And so commissions are a great way to do that. But even if you're selling original work, by through storytelling, by
mm,
connecting, by openly inviting your audience on the journey that is your life and your artistic journey and what you're trying to create, what you're learning, what you're falling short on, like sharing mistakes, sharing,
mm.
shortcomings or pitfalls like on the journey. It takes vulnerability, it takes strength, and it is a beautiful way to connect with people who actually they really care. Some people just come and
Yeah.
go. Like that's why follower numbers are so arbitrary. Like I it's so annoying that we have to, pander to the app sometime, but the numbers of people that are following you, just as shown as
Mm,
the number of followers. Not all of them are following you. And so the people
mm,
that engage with you, the people that will send you a DM or comment on your post, or I mean, even the people who are looking, they care enough to pay attention. So
mm.
inviting your audience on your journey through storytelling is an excellent way. What else? What other gems do you have tucked up your sleeve?
I think another piece, if we're talking about business strategy, and I feel like this would be something that a lot of people struggle with that are new to business and new to valuing themselves, is how you price yourself.
Mm,
And that's definitely something that I've learnt over the last 5 years in business, is how to value myself, and how valuing myself goes beyond just the time that I'm putting into a piece.
yeah.
And so this is when I talked about before about having signed that first commission at $1,500. I could have undersold myself a lot and said, okay, I'm going to do my first commission for just a couple $100s. But because over the years, I've learned how to, one, be grounded in my worth, understand my skill set, understand how that's not something that everyone has access to in the way that I've got access to it, and then also understanding those layers of time, skill set, the uniquity of what it is that I create, and how my creative mind thinks in a way that's completely different to the next creative mind, and all these other layers, to then be able to price myself in a way that I feel confident backing, and not willing to I guess, slip on just to try to make that first sale. So for
Mhm.
anyone who is maybe listening to this, who is new to selling anything, whether that be art or a different product in a business that you're starting up, learning how to actually value yourself accordingly, and stretching beyond just the amount of time that goes into a piece of work, or an offer that you're delivering, is again like one of the most important areas of your strategy. Because if we're talking about the sustainability of your business, and I mean, I'm not yet a full-time artist, but I take it you're a full-time artist, and there's other full-time artists that listen to this, you also have to think about, how are you pricing yourself when you're building towards that goal of being full-time? What is the lifestyle that you're living, or that you want to be living? And how can you be raising your value as an individual to support that through the work that you do?
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good point. It takes artists years to
Mhm.
feel comfortable or even slightly comfortable with their own prices, the pricing for their work, the
Mhm.
pricing strategy they have for their work. And even then, when it's time to update that pricing, it's super scary. It's intimidating because you feel this level of discomfort.
Mm.
I like I remember feeling like taken for granted. Like
Mm.
I would sign a commission or I'd sell a piece and I'd be like, "Oh, they like stole that." Like I didn't
Yeah.
charge enough for that. So there's like an intrinsic value that is there. But then like establishing
Mm.
that price and putting it public and putting it on a pricing sheet, or writing it
Yeah.
down in a way that's like, when somebody asks my pricing, I could just copy and paste.
Yeah.
And that, even that alone, not having to think about it or put any emotions behind it, is just making the decision ahead of time and then just copy and pasting it. Um,
Mm.
that takes courage.
I like
That's a
what
good
you
point.
I like what you said there about, like, you felt like you were ripped off in some of your earlier days. One of the
Mhm.
biggest things that I asked myself when I was pricing my commissions is does this number feel good to me? And
Mhm.
I actually sat with that. And if there was like this slight, no, it doesn't feel 100% good, I would raise it that little bit further, so that it would reach that point where it's like, okay, I would feel like I am really, I'm getting served, in doing this for someone else. I would feel like my time, my effort, and even just the letting go of the piece, like I feel like I'm not losing in this situation, and that my needs are being met. And like, I'm a very feeler. I'm a very emotional person, and I know a lot of artists are like that as well. So simply just ask yourself that question, write down a number and go, how do I feel about this number? Do I feel like this is making sure that both of us are happy after this engagement, not just the client, but me as well?
Yeah, totally. And then also leaning a bit on data, because I'm also a feely kind of person as well. And as an artist, it's
Mm.
my work. It's something I've created or I'm gonna create, and it's intrinsically tied to my time and my effort
Mm.
and all of that, my skill, my abilities. So using that, how do I feel about this price, and what do I really want, or what do I
Mm.
need to feel, I guess, adequately compensated for the work, right? And then also
Mm.
looking at data, like what are people paying for something equivalent? What are other artists in my area charging? What is the cost of living in my area? People
Mm.
in one city in America can charge a certain amount compared to a larger city where the cost of
Mm.
living is higher. The difference between Australia and the US, like what is the cost of living, what is appropriate,
Mm.
and then like balancing that, like finding that balance. We could talk about pricing forever. That's like a whole. That's a
I'll
whole
rabbit
master
hole.
class. Maybe we should do a master class. Yeah, no, I think that that's fascinating. Fellow entrepreneurs, listen up. Let's talk about protecting your business. We all know that having a solid contract is essential, but drafting them is daunting and can be very expensive. I'm an artist. I'm not a lawyer for a reason. That's where the legal page comes in. The legal page offers attorney drafted contract templates tailored for creatives and small business owners like you and me. Whether you're a photographer, an artist, a business coach, a designer, or an event planner, or what have you, they've got you covered. These templates are easy to customize and come with very clear instructions that include free future updates. That's huge. I was honored to be asked to review their live event artist contract, and it checks all the boxes for me. Don't leave your business vulnerable. Invest in peace of mind with the Legal Pages contract templates. So, if you're ready to get your business legally legit, head to the show notes and click the link to save 10% off any product in the shop, or use my code StephanieG10. Again, get your business legally legit with a Legal Page contract today. Have you helped a lot of artists? Like, have you served clients who are independent artists before? Who's
Mm.
been your demographic?
Yeah, in the past, it's predominantly been coaches that I've worked with, on building their businesses. But it's interesting because as I had opened the doors to like step into this artist journey of
Mm-hmm.
my own more, I then started attracting more people who wanted to do that too. And one of my clients, her name's Serena. So she's very free spirited. And, we've been doing lots of coaching together over the last 6 months and really helping her find that direction she wanted to move in. And we've finally reached this point where now she's clear that it's art therapy she wants to be getting trained in and starting to build her brand and her business around the art that she creates and her creative expression, so that once she's finished with those studies, she's then got that platform to be able to start monetizing from. So, yeah, I would say that's probably the most notable artistic based client that I've had. Other clients, though, who haven't been artists, I've been able to inspire them artistically to actually tap into their creativity more as well. So, again, like
Mm-hmm.
lots of coaches, within the mindset space or other areas in particular, when we've worked together, they've realized that they've been disconnected from that creative part of themselves whilst falling down that rabbit hole of being too heavily in their masculine and the doing that comes with
Mm-hmm.
building the business itself. So reconnecting people with their creativity in that capacity as well has been a big theme in my journey. But definitely from here, like, as I'm starting to position myself more as a professional artist, I'm wanting to call in more artists who are in those beginning stages of their business journeys and helping them with building their brands and building their platforms and growing that visibility, so that then they've got a social media platform to actually be selling their artwork from and monetizing that from.
Yeah. So are you it's I know that you want like you're pursuing this now path
Mm,
toward being an full-time independent artist, right? Are you going to maintain clients like that? Like it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you really love what you do as a coach and a brand strategist.
yeah.
And I think that you're trying to live in the world of artists in any way that you can feel fulfillment and joy. And maybe you can work those two together
Yeah,
depending on how much time you have, or what is being more fruitful or productive. um that would be really exciting, wouldn't it, to be able
definitely.
to kind of edge into just serving like artists or creatives, and then also building your own portfolio and just kind of
Definitely.
diving into that world. That sounds so exciting.
It is. I mean, I love both sides. Like, I love being able to strategize and I love being able to help people with their mindsets. But I also want to nurture that desire of mine to be an artist as well. And so every time I've reflected on how I want everything to look, it's always been an integration of the two
Mhm.
where, like I can be building my art and I can be creating an income from that. But I also get to create an impact over here working directly with people and creating an income from that as well. So for me, I like to ask the question of how can I do both? Like, does it really have to be one or the other, or can I be blending both? Particularly also one thing that's really lit me up over the last 5 years of my career in the business space is the opportunity to actually speak on stages and empower. And you
Yeah.
know, I mean, my Instagram name's Empower with Em. Like, I love doing that. It brings me energy and it brings me life. And so the big picture for me when I see everything integrated is I'm doing the art, I'm creating the income from that. I've got the spaciousness in my day to be painting when I want and where I want, but then I'm also speaking on stages and I'm working with high caliber clients, like helping them step into whether it be their artistry or a brand that brings them more joy and more fulfillment. So right now it's definitely I'm wanting to create the blend of the two and I'm working to create the blend of the two, but at the same time you never know what the future holds. And I mean, if the doors and the opportunities opened to just be fully embodied in my art and like be making a ton of money from that, then I ain't gonna say no to that
Amen, sister. I
either.
love that. Oh, that's so exciting.
I
Okay.
will say though on this, because I
What?
feel like you've got value to add on this. I will say that there is limiting beliefs that I carry, like as I shared about when I was 17 years old and I didn't study art because I was like, you can't make money from art. There's a lot of limiting beliefs I'm still trying to untangle around what is possible when it comes to creating an income full time as an artist. And so for me, it's like having conversations with people who are doing that, looking for the evidence online of people who are doing that so that I can start to reprogram that. Because once those beliefs shifts, like who knows? Like maybe if in my mind I fully wholeheartedly believed that I could achieve the level of wealth that I want to create for myself through just doing my art, then
Mm,
maybe I would close the doors to other things. But I know that that's where there is a block for me at this point, and being able to still shift those old paradigms to be able to fully see, you know, the potential of what could be made financially as an artist.
yeah. Well, one thing that I've learned to be true is that success as an artist comes from, in large part, like putting in the miles. I just
Mm,
we just had a guest on, Stephanie Page Thompson. She is a portrait artist, but and she hosts a live virtual studio for portrait artists. But she, at a very young age, has achieved so many hours of painting because she, instead of going to a university for
mm,
like her college years, she took back-to-back workshops from artists, live, in
mm.
person, living artists all around the country, the US, for 4 years straight, and then has
Wow.
continued to paint. Like, this has been, she dove in completely. And so in terms of like mileage, she's probably got more mileage than I do in the past 10 years, because I've been doing other things. I'm expecting
Mm,
my fourth baby. So a lot of time is with my children, and, and I travel for weddings and all the things, the podcast, all the things. But, mileage, like put in the mileage. So whenever you're, um, putting your artist hat on and you're in the studio, devoting a number of hours a day or a chunk of time a week, to learning and growing and making bad art, like that has to happen. Not everything you paint
mm,
is going to be a slam dunk. Not everything you paint is going to be paid, a paid gig. That's why I like
mm,
commissions, because you can get paid to practice in a way. You're building your portfolio, you're developing your painting style, you're learning more about who you are as an artist and what you like to do, what you want to do more of. You're
mm.
making bad brush marks, you're making excellent brush marks that you just want to savor. And like, I've made paintings where I don't want to get rid of them, like wedding paintings. I've painted at people's weddings and they're emailing me like, "Hey, when can we get our painting?" And I'm like, "You can't have it yet." Because I'm so proud of it. It's just like a really great piece. And so that's an element of like the arts, the creating art,
Mm,
that can't be undersold. Like
mm,
definitely making time for pursuing the development of your skill and
mm.
that part of your life. So definitely do that. All right, artist friends, if you've been wanting to try oil paints but don't know where to start, I've got the recommendation for you. Chris Fornatero, also known as Paint Coach on YouTube, has an incredible course called The Foundations of Oil Painting. And honestly, it's one of the best resources out there for mastering the basics. Now, I have my own course and mentorship program specifically for artists and live painters, and I'm super proud of the work that we do there. But I'll be the first to tell you, we don't go nearly as deep into the fundamentals of oil painting specifically as Chris Fornatero does in this course. He breaks down everything, not only the materials that you need and how to use them, but also value, color mixing, brushwork, and setting up your palette properly so that it clicks. Whether you're brand new to oils or you just want to strengthen your foundation, this is the course that I recommend. To check out the course and support the show, visit paintwithpaintcoach.com or go to my show notes and click the link there that I've provided. Get the skills, the confidence, and the solid foundation to make your best work yet. Okay, I want to ask you about strategy, right? Because
Yes.
you're a strategist. What is your strategy? Having opted out of like art school, you pursued an architecture master degree. That's amazing. You ran your own business, earned well over six figures. Like you built something
Mm.
there, and now you are in the infant stages of your artist career. What do you want to share? Like what your strategy is? Like it could be like
Yeah.
bird's eye view looking down. It could be what you're most excited about, the next steps. Like, what are the
Mm.
next three steps that you've planned for your own art business?
So I guess the first step is continuing to share my story. So on social media, creating content that is integrating my art and starting to train my audience to see me as more of an artist because for years I never showcased that. So one piece is creating content, allowing myself to be seen and sharing the story behind my art. The next piece is actually fine tuning my craft. Now, one thing that has definitely weighed on my mind as I've taken this step forward, like you were saying before about putting in the reps,
Mm-hmm.
I kick myself in a way and I go, imagine if I did go to art school and instead of studying architecture for 5 years, I studied art for 5 years. Where would my skill set be? Because right now it's very raw talent that I've got. It's not, I've never learned techniques, I've never done any training. I haven't been consistently painting for years and years and years. Like it's been one piece here, one piece here. And so it's very raw talent that I have right now. And where I feel the frustration is in knowing the potential that I could be in right now when it comes to the level of skill that I have. But I don't try to dwell on that. And instead, I use that potential as motivation to keep fine tuning my craft and to keep
Mm-hmm.
practicing and to keep painting. Now that I know, okay, well, if for 10 years I had been refining this and focused on this, it could have been here. Well, now the next 10 years or the next 5 years, how can I collapse time to get there as quickly as I can? So for me, what that really looks like is, first of all, just painting freely and trying different brushes and trying different mediums and experimenting and finding what I really enjoy. The other thing is also looking at other creators online. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at other artists and starting to find like, oh, I'm really inspired by their style here and I'm really inspired by their style there, and drawing upon different elements that I want to experiment with and I want to play with, and that might guide me to then what my style is in itself. So that's probably like the biggest learning curve I'm going through at the moment, is just the refinement of my craft and really finding my own style. And as we spoke about before, like, I mean, as you know, like I don't have the context in my mind of what different formal styles there are, and we've put two and two together to go, okay, I'm more on the surrealism side. So now for me, I'll probably take that and do some more research into
Mm-hmm.
finding more surrealist painters and seeing what's been done before, and then how I can adapt that or adapt my style or progress my style further. So very much like that, being a beginner, going through the learning, going through the experimentation stage. And then the third step that I'm taking is starting to look for ways to monetize. So one thing that I have been wanting to take some action on is getting prints made of the paintings that I have done in the past few months, and starting there and starting to put those prints out onto my social media to sell them as a step one, before then step two, starting to, sell the originals connected to those prints as well. So to summarize, what was the first thing I said? I think the first thing that I said was marketing myself. So positioning
Through
myself
storytelling.
through storytelling and
Mm-hmm.
building the brand around me as an artist, experimenting and finding my creative style and really fine tuning that skill set. And then the third piece, just starting to sell what I've already created.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really good strategy. That's very good advice for anyone listening. How do you get
Thank
started?
you.
You take a step forward, you pick up a brush, and yeah, and then thinking about how to monetize quickly.
Yeah.
It would be really fun. It'd be peaches and cream if we could just talk about painting all day and ignore the need to provide for
Mm.
ourselves financially.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something to consider. And then there are many ways to do that. And I think
Mm.
selling prints is a good one, especially with as you grow your portfolio, right? You've got your
Mm.
few pieces, they're really good. And so, creating really high quality prints and putting that out there, that's a really good product.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then like, I didn't go to fine art school. The people who are going to Florence, like the Florence School of Art, I envy the time that they get just to be fully immersed.
Yeah.
Sure, I could have done that, but I was advised also when I was
Yeah.
17, get a job, get a degree in something that you could easily get a job in. And so I went
Mm.
more of the graphic arts, the
Yeah.
graphic route, marketing, web design
Yeah.
in 2008 when I was making these decisions, like websites were all the rage. So,
Yeah.
apply your skills to something functional or whatever. And I took a few little painting and drawing classes, sculpture, whatever, the little
Mm.
extracurriculars. And those, I mean, I could have done that the whole time, right? Because that's where
Mm.
my heart was. And, finding that niche, that little sweet spot between like what you're good at, what people are willing to pay for, what brings you the most joy, what you can
Mm.
monetize. Like this is what we should be seeking as artists, while at the same time devoting as much time as
Mm.
possible to practicing and making bad art. It has to happen. It has to happen. Like I'm still making bad art. I'm still I'm still doing studies and practicing. I have shelves on the other side of this camera that people don't see that are full of bad art that I look at all the time because I'm
Mm.
learning from, like, I'm still learning lessons from it.
Yeah.
So that's just a really fun part of the process, is that you get to paint and sketch and learn like constantly. So I'm really excited for that, for you to experience that. Do you have any advice for anybody who may be kind of on the cusp of leaving a job, or being really unhappy and fed up with a job and
Mm.
wanting to choose a creative career? Because it takes a lot of courage. Um,
Mm.
because you're not like, there's a big question mark over how can I make money doing this? Do you have any words of advice
Mm.
now that you've taken that step and you're in it, you're in the trenches?
Yeah, it's funny because again, like I feel like I took that step with such confidence and courage
Hmm.
when I was 22, and then now at 27, as I'm taking that step again, it's like, oh, trying to like reteach myself how to do what it is that we've done in the past. But the biggest thing is, first of all, for me, creating space to get clear and connect on with what I want, right?
Hmm.
So for me, like it just keeps coming back to that vision of me sitting in my garden, painting with spaciousness and feeling calm and peace and joy from that. And then actually asking myself, is the path that I'm on now really bringing me to that destination? And if not, what needs to change? There's a lot of rewiring of your mindset that you will need to do as you take this journey to step away from your job and follow a more creative path, because there are certain beliefs like what we've talked about today that have put you on that path in the first place, right? And it's about addressing them and unlearning them and choosing new beliefs that are going to align you with that vision that you have for yourself. And then also just trusting yourself, just trusting yourself to step into the unknown and to take that leap and to know that you will figure it out. Even if, you fail a few times, you trip and you fall, even if it feels like you've taken a couple steps backwards, when you trust that you will be resourceful enough to hold yourself and guide yourself through that transition, then that's where the growth comes from. And eventually you'll wake up one day and be like, wow, why did I ever fear this path? Why did I ever fear this unknown? Because it's everything that I ever wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so true. I'm reliving that big jump that I
Mm,
made over 10 years ago as well. It just becomes very clear and like you can't ignore it. Like a calling, I call it a calling.
yeah.
It's something that you can't ignore anymore. Um, so that's very exciting. That's awesome. Okay, I want to ask you about your paintings, your painting
Mm,
style.
yay.
What do you love? What do you love most about painting in this kind of surrealist juxtaposed kind of style?
Yeah, so I remember when I was in year 12 and it was our year 12 art project. That was when I first started discovering like this style for myself, and it started by paint, like by drawing. Actually, I did paint. Maybe I'll send you all these photos. I did paint some dead sunflowers, which was like they were meant to represent different mental illnesses like schizophrenia, and the flowers were like the
Oh.
people, and like they were made all eerie. And that, when I first created that, I was like, wow, I feel like I'm expressing this part of myself that like I am like, I'm smiling all the time. I smile when I cry, like from I'm always giving out that positive happy energy, like, and giving that to other people. And when I discovered that style, I was like, wow, this feels like I'm able to actually hold space and honor some of the heavier emotions that maybe I don't express outwardly as much. And so for me, like the painting of the dead sunflowers was like a way for me to just let that out. And then that
Mm.
started to become this theme in a lot of the art that I created. My favorite piece is actually a graphite pencil sketch, which was, it took me like 100 hours, and it's like my
Oh my
greatest
gosh.
accomplishment I've ever done. I will send you a photo of that. It was inspired by a dream that I had when I decided to quit my job and quit my degree. And then I had this dream that this big crow flew down and landed on my arm. And it was like, for me, that was like my spirit guide saying, it's going to be okay. Follow this tug, follow this path. You've got this. We're supporting you. And I ended up drawing it to like have that physical reminder for myself. But again, the way that I've drawn that piece is very surreal. Like there's these weird elements of flowers intertwining around the bird, and these moths and these moons all morphing together. And even with how I'm painting now, again, like there are all these different elements, creating this very, like you hit the nail on the head when we were talking before, this dreamlike landscape. And I feel like for me, I love being in that fantasy world. I love
Mm.
being in a reality that isn't this reality, because it's like an escape into somewhere more magical, somewhere that feels connected to something even more powerful than maybe what we experience here in this reality. And so when I'm creating these surreal kind of artwork, it's me escaping, and it's me connecting in with something bigger. And I guess knowing that whatever challenges I'm experiencing in this reality, they don't exist in my
Yeah.
creative space, and it's a way for me to tap into hope, or to tap into some life force that's just going to keep me driving forward despite whatever little hurdles that I face. So I forgot what your question was, but does that answer
I asked you what you love about your painting style, and your face lit
it?
up, and then you have just been spewing just love and joy and passion. So, yes, it does answer the question because I could tell that you love what you're pursuing.
Yeah.
When you create your pieces, do you start with a concept sketch, or do you strive for realism in the style of the painting, because they are more realistic, they're crisp, they're organized, the
Mm.
painting that we've shown, and then also the drawing that you're going to send me, and I'm going to put on screen so everybody can see it. um like I know that you have like raw talent. Okay, what is the process of creating a piece like that? Can you walk us through that real fast?
Mm. So it depends on, I guess, where the inspirations come from. Sometimes I
Hmm.
just go straight onto the canvas, like the one with the heart. That was just straight onto the canvas.
Wow.
But then, for example, like this morning, I was doing a bit of a sketch because I thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just start to like do some sketching in my mornings and start the day creatively? And I've started sketching out like a more an even more complex maybe piece that I want to start to spend some time working on from there. So it's really a combination. Like I'll wake up some nights and I'll be struck with inspiration and I'll say to my partner, I'll be back. And he's like trying to go to sleep and I'll quickly sketch out a quick image because I know that when that inspiration lands, it's not going to be there for long. And whether or not I start that painting now or I come back to that in a year and I go, oh yeah, I had this idea. I really want to do that. I just like to collect those ideas. But yeah, it depends on if I'm really wanting to intentionally create something that is planned and thought through, or if
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wanting to express and move something out of me as to whether or not I'll do a bit of a concept sketch.
Ooh, yeah, I love that. Do you find that you lean more towards one medium for the more organized, thought out pieces, whereas maybe you use more graphite or more of a sketching kind of material for the
Mm.
fast and get it out my brain and on the paper kind of pieces?
Yeah, I'll definitely do my base sketches with graphite. I find that
Mm,
using a pencil is definitely my most natural and like
mhm,
easiest. And especially when it comes to creating details, I feel like I can achieve a lot with that. Versus like painting is a technique that I have had a lot less experience with,
mm,
but I'm wanting to develop so much more. So I've shifted away from doing pencil sketches for now because I know that's where I'm confident and focusing fully on the painting, because even just like I feel like even just painting itself is a different kind of motion that my body goes through, and that's what I'm
mhm.
really like wanting to experience more of, is that like almost like a releasing experience that happens when painting versus the tightness that comes from sketching with a pencil. So pencil is my more natural, but painting is what I'm wanting to expand on and work on.
Oh, 100%. I can completely relate.
Mm,
When I wanna get an idea out or capture something really quickly, sketching with a
mm,
pen, ink, graphite, whatever, a crayon, literally
yeah.
anything. But when I want to make the right decisions, when I want something
Mm,
to be completely fleshed out, like, make something glow or elicit an emotion, that is where I
mm,
dive in with paint because it requires more decisions to be
yeah.
made. Just the act of cleaning your brush and going back in with a new color, it takes time. So you can't just
Yeah.
like throw it up there. Different process. That's why I asked. I was
Definitely.
like, okay, I feel like that would happen. That happens for me. That is so exciting. I can't wait. Do you have a plan for your next piece that you're going to either draw or paint? Like, what are you excited about coming up next? Like, immediately next?
Yeah, I think that the sketch I started today is what I'm going to do immediately next,
Hmm.
because I feel like it's going to help me develop my style more. I'm wanting to start to play with, because I do a lot of, with my paintings, I do a lot of galaxies and then layering things onto galaxies. I'm wanting to bring through like sacred geometry into some of my work to add more layering. And that's one thing that I really want to be able to achieve, is how can I create a painting that is just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of different elements that create like this kind of depth that is like, how did a brain think of that? Like,
Hmm.
so the next step for me with my painting is definitely starting to intertwine elements like geometry and little abstract detailing,
Yeah.
to complement some of the more realistic features that are in there, to just create that, yeah, that depth and that almost mind that mind twister experience.
Yeah. That I would also love, I don't know if you do this already, but I would love to further dive into your mind and your process. If you were to like journal while you
Mm,
paint or while you draw, I don't know if you do that,
mm,
but I know a lot of people that work from, like, I work from references. I do portraits a lot. If it's a landscape, it's a meaningful landscape where it's like,
mm,
here's the imagery, create this in your own manner. But artists that I know who are pulling something from inside of them to create this piece
mm,
that where they have limited references and they really are painting intuitively, they journal. And some
mm,
people will journal on, like, they'll write incorporate some of those notes in the painting itself.
Yeah.
And so that adds to the layering. That would be really cool. But like for
Mm.
you to journal alongside, it'll help you flush out your thoughts as the painting is coming together. But then at the end, when the painting is complete, when you've come to a point where you're like, it is done,
Mm.
then you have this entire story of like it's coming together, but then here's the hurdles, and here's
Mm.
the forks in the road that where you had to make a decision one way or another, and why you chose this one. I don't know. I just think with your painting style and what you're trying to
Yeah.
achieve, that would be really cool. That'd be like
Yeah.
the icing on the cake for
I
sure.
love that. I think I might start to do that. I try to in my art journal. I bought this really cute like Alice in Wonderland art journal, so it
Love.
like just inspires me when I look at it. But when I'm
Mhm.
doing like my sketches and mapping out what I want to do, I'm annotating like the
Mhm.
way that like I'm annotating a floor plan, and I'm like
Mhm.
putting these arrows saying this here, this there, and yeah, I think that could be a cool thing to start to integrate as I'm actually painting and going through the process to start to see what kind of creative notes come through that then I can look back on in the end. Because it is almost like a blur, like you'd
Yes.
understand. You start to create and you fall into this zone. And I like to time lapse my videos. And my
Mhm.
partner's always like, why do you always time lapse? I'm like, because it is a genuine blur between when I put that paintbrush on the canvas until I take it off after that session. Everything in between is a blur and I forget where we started, and I like to look at the time lapse of
Yeah.
okay, what is actually everything that I did just do in that session.
Yeah, and that's an excellent form of storytelling too. I love to time lapse and record the process of creating my paintings.
Yeah.
I don't like to record myself because that's like, okay, I'm in my studio, I'm in my pajamas, I'm comfortable.
Mm,
That's my process. It's the middle of the night, whatever. But when the painting is done and
mm,
I look at it and I'm like, oh, I regret, like, if I don't record it, I regret
yeah.
it because it's over. It's done. It's gone.
Yeah.
Like that experience of seeing it, seeing the process come together. Yeah, excellent storytelling. I would love
Mm,
to read whatever you composed in the future. Like if you were to do that, just
yeah.
that would be beautiful. But your work is beautiful. Where can people follow you and join you on this journey because you're just getting
Mm.
started?
Yeah, the best place to follow me is on Instagram at Empower with M is my handle. And yeah, basically I just am sharing different pieces I'm creating. I'm vlogging parts of the journey. I'm really trying to see how I can document as much of the process that I go through because that's what I've done for the past 5 years in every other phase in my journey anyway. So definitely over on my Instagram, and I will be kicking off some new episodes on the Empower with Them podcast soon that are more centered around my journey as an artist as well. So that'll be fun to have a listen to there. But you can also go back to when I was 22 years old and listen to that first transition I went through because I had the podcast back then, and it's really been a bit of an audio diary in that sense.
Oh my gosh, wait, have you been recording this whole time or did you
Yeah.
record for a period and then stop and then you're jumping back in?
So predominantly, I have recorded through every phase. The first 3 years of the journey definitely more heavily recorded. Then
Mhm.
certain experiences in my life pulled me out of that for a
Mhm.
bit, and then I lent back in earlier this year. Still some inconsistencies, but still documenting each stage
Yeah.
progressively. So definitely wanting to double down more on that moving forward as now I'm like really focusing on this creative path. But yeah, definitely you can go back and it's crazy when I go and listen to my 22-year-old self, and I sometimes just put my own recordings on in the car and I'm like, wow, it's amazing, some of the things that I shared in the moment that are so relevant to where I am now. And I'm like
Wow.
listening to it for advice from myself.
Precious. I didn't even think, here I am recording this podcast and I didn't even think about the value of being able to look back on it as like a journal.
Yeah,
My
crazy.
mind is blown. Oh my gosh, yeah, I want to go listen. That's so exciting. Oh my gosh, well, thank you so much for coming hang out with me today. What a journey.
Mm.
You have had, like, you've lived a life, girl.
Oh.
You've had quite the journey so far. You've built something incredible for yourself and you're 27. I'm 34, so I'm not like that old, but I'm like at
Yeah.
27, you getting started again from not like from scratch, but really from the scratch, like from the
Yeah.
beginning. And you have an opportunity, you're giving yourself the opportunity to build this new life for yourself. I hope that you are painting in your garden sooner than
Yeah.
you think it'll happen. It's so exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go follow you. Everybody listening, go follow Em. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I can't wait to see what you paint next, girl.
Thank you, and same to you.
All right, bye. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this.